My floor is like a fucking black hole. And now just for ease of access to everything else, I'm gonna go ahead and take these two panels off, and I'm gonna debate whether or not I need to take the gas tank off to get to everything else in here, which I may just go ahead and do because the throttle idle cables are running right through here, and they're gonna be running right to the carb. So I may go ahead and pop the gas tank off while I'm in here. First things first, panels. All the panels are off, super easy, 4 bolts on each one, 8mm bolts, super easy. Not knowing anything from anything, I think I am gonna take this gas tank off, and I'm pretty sure it's only this little rubber lock right here. Basically you just stretch and get it over that bolt, and then there's another 8mm bolt right here, and then the fuel hose underneath here, which I'm gonna do just like I did on my Dyna and clamp it with some vice grips and possibly drain this. That's actually not a bad idea. I'm gonna get this gas tank off real quick, and then I'm gonna do just like I did with my Harley. Take some little baby vice grips, pinch this fuel line right here in front of the valve, and then I'm just gonna cut this, and then this whole thing should just lift up on out of here. Hopefully this doesn't get caught on anything and it just kind of goes up in there. And no, I'm not draining this before I take it out, because this doesn't have a crossover line like my Harley did. So basically I'm just gonna cut this line, and then I'm gonna drain the fuel after the tank's out into a can. This tank's out. Now I have access to, I just popped this out, but the spark plug, the head, the carburetor a whole lot better, and then just pretty much the engine as a whole. This is why I love automotive archaeology. I just pulled the plug out of this thing, and this is a E364 plug. I don't know what that means, beyond me. But doing some Googling, this plug does not go in a dirt bike engine. This plug does not go in anything but like mid-sized cars. So that may be one of the reasons this thing's kind of running like, and this fucking thing feels like it's broken. So that may be one of the reasons this thing's not running too hot. So, let's put a new plug in here. Luckily, the fine folks over at Rocky Mountain ATV have this NGK plug in stock. And I got this for this, and hopefully this will make it run a little better. We'll see. So continuing the archaeology lesson here, I was just screwing around off camera, took the valve cover off just to see, the inner workings of this engine. Holy shit, am I glad I did. I found what can only be called a catastrophic failure, or what could have been a catastrophic failure in this engine. So when I did the oil change in here, I found some metal shavings in the oil filter. Nothing crazy, just a little bit of aluminum shavings, enough for you to, want to figure out what's going on. Like I said off camera, I took the valve cover off just to check it out. And, well, I found this bolt. This is a cam sprocket bolt. And this bolt was just sitting inside the cam sprocket, not tight or anything, just completely backed out. The only thing holding it in was the valve cover. So that led me to look inside the valve cover. Check this out. So this is the valve cover, and this circle here is not supposed to be there. That was just this loose bolt scraping up against that. Luckily it was, and this bolt stayed in there and the sprocket didn't fly off. This bolt is completely stripped, so now I need to find a new bolt for the cam sprocket and flush out all of these aluminum shavings that are probably still floating around somewhere. God damn, I'm glad I just sort of dug into this thing for no reason. That could have been really bad. Alright, I got my carb rebuild kit and my actuator pump rebuild kit, or sorry, accelerator pump. These need to get put to use. I need to get this carb out of this engine. Now, from what I've gathered, the only things I need to disconnect are this wiring harness, the hot start plunger, and the throttle and idle cables. I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and remove the entire carb and pull it up through the top, and then disconnect all of that when I have more room to play with it being out. Should work a little bit easier. here's the throttle idle cables. Now this whole side plate needs to come off. It's just this bolt here, and then there's one on the back side here. And then this is the hot start plunger right here. And of course this thing's spilling gas everywhere. Okay, that's the hot start plunger. That was a 14 mil. Yeah, you don't really need to worry about losing anything in here. It's all under spring tension, so I'm just gonna set this up here with the rest of these cables. Just completely out of the way, like so. That didn't work at all. Now the last thing should be this wiring harness right there. And then this thing should come right out. Okay. And that is the last of it. There's your carburetor with vacuum lines, or vent lines galore. Jesus Christ, this thing's ridiculous looking. Looks like a fucking octopus. Time to rebuild this thing. Hope it makes a difference. Alright, so that is gonna do it for the carburetor removal. Yeah, as you can tell, things don't always go as planned. I wasn't planning on removing the fuel tank. I wasn't planning on, taking the valve cover off, the spark plug. I was gonna do that eventually, but it's a very good thing I did, because I did find that very large issue. You'll see in a later video, I was able to source that bolt locally. Actually, 20 miles up the road, there is a Honda dealership and they had it in stock, so luckily that worked out. Sometimes it just pays off to be curious and, wanna dig into things. That could have been again, catastrophic failure. Yeah, that could have possibly blown the entire engine on this bike. So yeah, a lot of stuff has gone into getting the carburetor out. As you can see, the subframe had to be taken out. The gas tank did not have to be, but it made it a whole lot easier, and the gas tank was not hard to take off at all. But now the carb is out, and next week I'm going to be doing the complete rebuild on the carb with the All Balls Racing carb rebuild kit and the new accelerator pump rebuild kit. So as always, thanks for coming by and watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends about it like I always say. Yeah, next week's video is going to be a good one. I go into some pretty good detail on the actual carburetor rebuild, because this carb is very complex compared to my CV carb and my Dyna. There are a lot more parts on this carb, and all the vent lines, and yeah, there's a lot going on in this carb. You'll see the parts spread out, the whole layout. It's pretty intense. But yeah, see you guys next week for the carburetor rebuild. Yeah, thanks for coming by.